First of all, always wanted to do this. Everyone smile. All right. Can you open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 13, please? So, I tend to think of life in terms of movie clips or tweetable moments. Somehow I've convinced myself they last long enough. But the other day, my girlfriend proved me wrong when she referred to my phone as the one I was cheating on her with. See, now I thought it was funny. See, we both giggled. Now, men, take notes. I'm no expert, but I don't think she was kidding. She talked about some other stuff, which I really don't remember. I was too busy in my head composing a tweet where I would quote her with some sort of clever hashtag about marriage, about relationships, about this poem is talking about his wife. That's what I got there. About relationships, hashtags about relationships, and about how much I love her to be paying attention to her at that moment. I think what snapped me back in was the silence that indicated I was supposed to have some sort of response to whatever she was talking about. I told my grandfather that story in hopes to get a little sympathy. My grandfather, a civil rights and Vietnam War vet, hopelessly charming on his fourth marriage, grandfather. Rather than the customary nod that men give each other when they understand, he proceeded to tell me why he failed as my grandmother's husband. He said it was the same reason half of his platoon died in Vietnam, and the same reason you were deathly afraid of your daughter becoming a teenager's son. You can't hear past the explosions. Either the ones that already happened, or the ones you anticipate. See, the former paralyzes. Living life in a rear-view mirror, driving full speed across the center divider, so shell-shocked you're too stupid to duck when bullets are flying. Or the latter. Your life a game of capture the flag. So focused on the finish line, you step right on a landmine. So ready to attack the day. Frustrated because you can't find your keys. Focused on the meetings you're going to miss and the traffic you're going to sit in to realize you've been holding your keys the whole time. Slow down. You've been hypnotized by the possibility. Son, I couldn't hear past the bombs. And the first one didn't kill me, and the second one ain't even happened, yet it ended our family. He told me a love story of a woman born before him, but I knew her from before, and at the moment of conception, there was an eternal connection, and although I didn't know it then, I'd fight for her affection. It's this war we've been waging since day one of creation, and only when you lose her do you learn to appreciate her. Like even when I'm with her, I'm itching to get rid of her, and she only gives you one shot. Blow it, and she's gone. That's why I'm telling you this, son. You can't rush her or slow her down. You better keep her on your side. She will slip through your fingers like sand. Her name is time. And she told me a secret. She says multitasking is a myth. You're not doing everything wrong, just everything awful. And she begged me to stop stretching her thin and stuffing her full and stop being so concerned with the old her or the future her, but love her now. Her presence is God's presence, and we should be that present. I guess that you can say I've been through a breakup. Me and my phone are no longer together. I think I'm ready to be here now. Matthew chapter 13 is the parable of the sower, and we are going to dissect what Jesus is talking about here. Most of the time when we think of Jesus, we think of how passionate and merciful and graceful he was. And of course he was, and thank God for it, but we often overlook his sense of focus. And what I mean by that is if you go through all four of the Gospels, and you look how Jesus talks and acts and just goes about his life, you see time and time again, people are trying to get him focused off his mission. Even his enemies, the religious leaders, Satan, and his disciples, his family and friends. Even Peter once said, hey, wait a minute, why do you have to die? You're the good guy. You're the king. Why don't you just kill all of them? And Jesus' response, I find it funny, was literally, "Whoa, Satan, calm down." Jesus said in his own words, "Satan, get behind me," to Peter, after Peter suggested the things of man and not the things of God. Because whenever someone suggests, and whenever Jesus comes across the things of God, Jesus ultimately puts him behind him and focuses and continues in his mission. Even at the cross, Jesus could have brought down legions of angels to come and save him, but instead he was so focused on his mission of saving us from our sins, that he could not bring himself to do it. Now, this is going to be a weird transition, but bear with me. The Europeans had many forms of torture back in the day. One of them was called soccer. The other one another form of torture that I'm looking at here was when they would take 4 horses and they would tie each horse to one of your forelimbs, your arms and your legs, and they would crack a whip, and the 4 horses would run in 4 different directions and tear you apart, literally. And the French called this la division, which roughly translates to distraction. This can relate to us because we live in a time where our attention span is being murdered by distractions and multitasking. Death, just like with the horses, by distraction. Are you easily distracted? Because I am. I have ADHD. I have it bad. That's my parents. Sometimes when I'm like in the middle of class, I'll be like, all right, what's going on? Like, what's the clock say? You know, who's turning in their test when? What's that noise? Oh wait, it's just me breathing. Okay, continue. The answer C. You know, and nice shirt by the way. I get easily distracted, and part of that distraction is the fact that we live in a time where all the information about the universe and everything in it fits in our pocket. John 10:10 says that the thief comes to destroy and kill. But I believe that thief comes to destroy and kill by distraction. Distractions are killing you, and distractions are pulling us apart. Sometimes distractions aren't always bad. You know, you may be working on work or paperwork or a homework assignment, and your kids come up to you, you know. It's not a bad distraction, but it's still a distraction. It's just a matter of getting our priorities straight. Start in Matthew 13:1. The same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Now, back to my ADHD. It says the same day. I don't know what they did earlier that day, so we go back to 12:46. While Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brother stood outside wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." He replied to him, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" Pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mothers and my brothers, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." Now, I thought about that and thought that could have been a good excuse, but then I would realize it would only work if you're Jesus. Like, for example, if my mom told me to clean my room and I said, "I don't think it's God's will for me to clean my room." And then my dad would roll his eyes at me and he would say, "Listen to your mother," and I'd say, "Who is my mother?" Anyway, continuing on 13, verses 2 through 9. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it. By the way, I totally just skipped over this. The meaning of 46 through 49 in chapter 12 was the fact that even his people closest to him, his mother, his brothers, and his sisters, could not get his focus off of him, could not hinder Jesus' focus. Anyway, back to verse 2. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got in a boat and sat in it, while all the other people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, "A farmer went out to sow his seed, and as he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came up and ate it. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seeds fell among the thorns, which gave up and choked the plants. Still other seeds fell